the first thing that we're going to talk about, and I have a few props with me, and then I'm going to angle the camera so you can see me do things. If at any point you can't see what I'm doing, please just somebody let me know so that I can adjust it. But as we get ready here, so obviously the first thing we want to do, so every segment of this that I do, I'm going to tell you about it, and then we'll walk through things. So when we do a warm-up, essentially the most important piece of this is that you actually do warm up. Anybody who knows me, Becky, Craig, and I ran in college together, I was like, warm up and cool down, like, this means nothing to me. Well, I know now that it is very valuable that you do that, and especially I still compete now, and if I didn't warm up and cool down, I would very much regret it. So there are certain principles, you know, that we should follow as we warm up, and there has long since been debates, okay, whether you do, okay, should I warm up and do a static stretch? Should I warm up and do a dynamic type of movement? What I will tell you is that you can incorporate both, but generally speaking, the purpose of the warm up is to elevate your heart rate, at least to a certain degree, that you're prepared to exercise and you don't go into any sort of shock when you actually do start to do something of a higher intensity. The reason we do this is also that you are preventing yourself from getting injured, and it's just kind of a good way to prepare your body and build strength initially. So the first kind of set of exercises I'm going to do are walking drills. Okay, so these are things that you can easily do alongside me now. So what I'm going to do is angle the camera and make sure you can see my feet. We're going to do, what do I have here? I have my notes over here just so I'm, you know, why I'm looking here, but 6 different walking drills because, you know, it might seem insignificant, but a lot of our body's pain when we are doing some sort of workout stems from the foot. So I am going to now stand up and angle myself accordingly so you guys can see what I'm doing. Excuse like all the dog toys that are everywhere because my dog has single-handedly taken them all out one at a time. Okay, so I'm gonna angle it down all the way to my foot so you guys can see, okay? So this first one is what we call toes, okay? So you literally, and I would say give yourself at least 10 meters, but you could in theory do this for as long as you'd like. You are gonna stand up onto your toes as if you were in a high heel, as I'm sure all of us, men and women alike, have been. Just kidding. But so you can do that, get up on your toes, and you just walk forward like so. And you'll feel that primarily in your calf. Okay, so you'll want to get a good couple of sets of that in. Okay. This is going to be a good video for the viewers at home to watch my feet for like 5-10 minutes. So the next one we're going to do, once you guys are done with that one, is essentially the exact opposite. So we have toes, which we just did, and now we are going to do heels. So you are going to the best of your ability, do not anyone, if you have, you know, some people's ankles are not as strong, just go as far back on your heel as you can comfortably. Sometimes it's easier in shoes, other times it's easier barefoot, and walk forward. And again, you don't have to go too far with these. You'll feel this one more so in the top of your foot and in your shin. I'll give you guys a minute to do that. Move my towel. Okay. And then we are going to do what we call pigeon foot, okay? So you're gonna angle your feet inward to the best of your ability. Again, if you have any sort of knee pain, just be careful. You don't have to go inward too far. And you do the same thing, walking forward. And that will work kind of, you'll feel that more in the outer sides of the calves here. And then the next one is the opposite again. So you're gonna move out as if you are a dancer and walk with your feet facing your sides, facing outward. And then we are going to move on to our last feet ones here. So you won't have to stare at my feet much longer. But these are what we call outside, okay? Sometimes people do struggle with this one a little bit, just depending on ankle mobility. So you can give it a shot. But you literally kind of turn right onto the sides of your feet and walk along the outsides. And then again, the last one is the opposite of that. So you're going to kind of roll in to the best of your ability toward your arch and walk on the inner portion of your foot. And again, you can do these with or without shoes. Sometimes it's easier without, depending. That one hurts a little bit for me without shoes, but. Okay, now we're back up to normal level, okay? I'll give you guys a minute to do those. And again, those are what we call our walking foot drills. So those are something that you can do pretty much all the time, which is why it works so well. You can do it in the house, like in a hallway, anything like that. So those I like to start with pretty much all the time because it works your feet, obviously, but also your ankle mobility, and works on stability and things like that as well, which is really helpful. So I'm going to show you now a few walking drills that you can do upright. So all of this, even though these are small movements, are still considered dynamic. A lot of times when we think of dynamic stretching, we think of like really explosive movements, but it doesn't have to be that way. It can be. But when we're talking about, you know, working in a space like your house, you don't want to knock things over. This is about as dynamic as we'll go. So the next one I'm going to do is a set of walking drills. And the first one is just knee to chest. Okay. So when you're walking, just picking up one knee, holding it to your chest, keeping your foot and toe pointed upward, walk a step, bring your next foot up, and you keep going like so. And again, you can do anywhere from like 10 meters of this to about 50. I'll do that, keep doing that so you guys can see. Angle myself more this way. And you'll notice I'm driving my knee pretty far up, but you don't have to drive it. You only need to go as comfortable as a little bit of a stretch, just because everyone's flexibility is different. If you feel it stretching, you don't want to push too far past that point, okay? So our next one is more of a, so if we've now done, okay, so we've done this. Now what we're going to do, this is kind of a good transition from this one, is a hip opening exercise. Okay, so you're doing that same position. So once you lift up here with your leg, you're holding at the kneecap and you're going to kind of open your leg like as if it's a hinge. Okay, so moving it outside and down. Other leg, moving it outside and down. And you do the same thing. Walk a step, pick up your other one. And this is working on hip mobility and kind of, they call this like hip girdle area. Not my favorite word, but that's essentially what it is. So just lifting and then outward. You'll see a lot of like track and field athletes do this. And like I said, you know, when you're doing a dynamic type of exercise like this, you can make it as dynamic as you want. So somebody who's really comfortable with that might turn it into like a skip, okay? Even I don't do that, and I do these all the time just because that's a lot, but there's a lot of different kind of progressions that you can do with these. But that is a good start to kind of get your hips open, everything a little bit looser. And then the next one I'm going to show you is going to incorporate a little bit more as well. So then we have just walking lunges, okay? So when you do this, when you think of a lunge, and we'll go over this again because this is a part of the workout as well, but you want to lift your leg up to here and really extend down into the lunge. And then walk forward and do the same. When you're first starting out doing these, I would do no more than 5 per side because you will be sore, even if you do 2 or 3. It just is the nature of lunges and squats. A couple of things I would note about lunges is, as well as when you're first starting these, if you haven't done lunges in a while or ever for that matter, you don't have to go so low that you're hitting your knee to the ground. And you don't want to overextend. Okay, so when you're going and pushing through this motion, you don't want your kneecap to extend too far over your big toe. A little bit's fine. Otherwise, you've maybe gone too far, which you can usually tell because it just starts to feel uncomfortable. So that's just something to be aware of, okay? And so the other things that I would walk you through are what we would call full body movement, okay? So we did kind of our foot drills is one section. Then we had our walking drills, and you can do any number of other walking drills, okay? So, you know, we did the knee to chest, like so. You can also do walking hamstring as well. There are variations on that, but I'm just giving you some examples. And what I will do is follow up so that we can send out kind of an inventory of these items so that you can see it, just because if I went through all of them, we would be here for years in theory. But so the other kind of set of warm-up exercises are full body. And we'll do a couple of these. The most important one is the body weight squat. Okay, so personally, I feel that this is a really foundational thing that you can use all the time. It's full body, and we're going to talk about this a little bit more when I move on to the workout portion. But essentially, I'm enjoying this cat that is taking part in the workout. Essentially, anything that is working the full body is really going to help you get warmed up, rather than when you're doing those static type stretches, it's very localized, which isn't necessarily bad, but might not raise the heart rate. So then we want to do just simple. I'm always trying to find my kind of best angle here. I've got a little stool too because I'm short, but body weight squats. So I'm going to show you my foot positioning. Okay, so I have my feet shoulder a little wider than shoulder width apart. Okay, some people need to go wider than others. I have kind of poor balance when it comes to doing a squat. So you have your feet pointed outwards, and you're going to lean back into a sitting position as if you're going to sit in a chair. I always hold my hands out in front of me like so, and back up. You want to go down, hold, and back up. And then I'll move further out so you guys can see kind of full body what that looks like. Okay. And if you're doing this as a warm-up, I would say no more than 5 to 10 repetitions are necessary. If you find that you have trouble staying balanced, I would again move your legs out wider a little bit. Another thing that you can try is a small lift underneath your heels. So if it's a rolled towel or something like that, I had to do that for a really long time to be able to get lower in the squat because I always felt like I was going to fall. So those would be some ways. You don't have to, in a warm-up setting, I would not add weight to it. You certainly can in a workout, but that's a good full body movement that you can start with. Okay. And then we would move on to, let me give you full range here, just a side shuffle. So just kind of swinging your legs out a little bit. It honestly, form and technique on the side shuffle, don't worry about it so much. It's literally just to get the legs moving. It moves your hips at the hinge and gets your legs looser, but you don't need to worry about hitting anything perfectly on this. And there's a ton of variations you can do on that too. For instance, once you kind of graduate from the classic shuffle, you can do what's called a, oh gosh, I'm forgetting what the term is. It's kind of like, you can hitch your legs off of each other. Like you would kind of click your feet together and do a pendulum. That's the word I'm looking for. So something like this, where I need to make sure you can see my feet. Okay. Where it's far more wide and you're kind of kicking out a lot more movement. And those are really important for things like speed and just a variation if you get bored. You can also do a skip depending on how your body feels and kind of what your range of motion is. You could do variations on a skip. So you could do a simple high knee or a power skip, which is a lot more explosive in the air. And again, it's totally up to as much as you feel comfortable doing. There is no requirement for how much air you get on your skip, unless you're in competition with yourself. But a simple skip will do. So those are what we call full body movement warm-up exercises. So it's not super involved, but you can tell, you know, like I just had some water. I can feel that my heart rate is up a little bit. I haven't, you know, done anything overboard, but I'm like, okay, I'm ready to get into some more intense movement, okay? So everyone is different, but on the whole, I would say you want to have at least 5 minutes of warm-up activity. More is fine. You want to feel that you're ready to go into another more intense movement. That's how I would describe it. You know, as I was saying, when I was in college, when we would get ready to do a workout, I could have literally probably jumped right onto the track and done it. Whereas now I'm like, okay, I really have to get warmed up to feel ready to do it. And so that's kind of a good way to judge your own body. So now we will move into kind of the actual workout portion of this. And the first thing I want to touch on as we go into that is that there are, generally speaking, 2 types of workout exercises. Well, generally speaking, and when it comes to body weight only. So you have your localized exercises. Okay, so this kind of falls into that same category as a static stretch. A localized exercise is one that focuses on a local area. So that would be your, you know, single arm curl with a dumbbell, or your single leg curl. You're only working one thing. That's not to say it may not benefit you elsewhere, but generally speaking, it's strengthening a specific area. Then we have what are called universal exercises. These are full body exercises. So when you think of things like as complex as an Olympic lift, that is a universal exercise, and it works the whole body, even if you feel it more so in a certain area. So we are going to do mostly universal. There is nothing wrong with doing a localized exercise, especially if you have an injury or a deficit in one area. That's very common, but universal, especially as a base, tends to work very well. So first thing I'm going to do is show you guys leg-based universal movements. So what we're going to do first, we've already gone through our squats. Okay, so we did that in our warm-up, but we're going to do another set now of just 10 consecutive body weight squats. So we're going to do 10, you go down, pause, come back up, that's 1. So 10 of those to start, and then we will move on to our next item. And again, I'll move out so you guys can see. Feet about shoulder width apart, maybe a little bit more so. And leaning back like you are sitting in a chair. And you'll feel this in your quads, hamstrings, glutes. And again, this is something that takes practice unless you're just naturally good at it, which was not the case for me. Okay, so I'll give you guys a minute to do that. Okay, so yes, squat. Okay, the next thing we're going to do, which I always do is kind of a natural progression from that, are what we call the lunge matrix. Okay, so when we're first starting this, if you do lunges all the time, great, you can do as many as you want. But if you have not been doing lunges, I would say 3 to 5 of each of these per leg is enough, or else you will be not walking tomorrow. You'll be wheeling yourself around. So when I say a lunge matrix, I'm gonna show you forward lunges, backward lunges, and a side or lateral lunge. So I'll stand a little bit further back so you can see. One thing to remember with lunges that people often forget, it's a lot more effective if when you come up, you push out, then down, almost like you are going to have your foot just lightly swipe the floor. Okay, so I'm gonna do forward lunge on my right side, and you keep that leg up when you bring it back as well, to the best of your ability. This is also another one that might challenge balance a little bit, and it's a really good exercise to build it. So I did 3 on that side. I'm gonna go up and out and switch legs. And again, careful not to overextend. Okay. And so once you've done your forward ones, my favorite ones are the backward ones. I don't know what it is about it. I find it easiest, and it's something about the repeat motion I like. But essentially, you're going to start with your foot upright and swing it back, up, back, up, back, up. I always drive my knee up. Again, that's to the best of your ability. You don't have to feel like you have to. Don't overstretch to do it. It just gives it a little more oomph, if you will. And then I'm going to switch legs. You can, I prefer, if I'm going to do a lunge, I do all of the ones I'm going to do on one side before I switch to the other. Some people alternate. That's completely at your preference. I don't think there is a right or wrong there. One thing I would recommend that is true based on research, not just my opinion, is that if you have a leg or any sort of limb, any injury, I'm like talking with my head cut off, you should always work your weaker leg or weaker limb first over your stronger one. Just helps build up that area more, and then you wouldn't, go crazy with your kind of stronger side and then say, oh, I can't even get anywhere near the number of lunges on this side. Okay, so just something to keep in mind if you have any imbalances or issues as far as that goes. And our last set of lunges is going to be our lateral. Okay, so this is when we are just going way out to our sides. And again, this is going to be based on what your flexibility is and just your ability level. It is something that obviously can get better, but you're going to lift your leg up and go out. And you go as far as you can down. And again, 3 per side's fine. When you first start doing this, if your ability to extend is only to here, that's fine. It's whatever you can do because you can build upon that. So then you'll switch sides, going as far out as you can, that is comfortable. Yes. And those are kind of the basics of our lunge matrix. There are other ones you can do. You can do kind of like a full clock, if you will. You can do every angle you want to. I only do those 3 because I feel like that's a lot of lunges in itself, and that could go on for quite some time. But lunges and squats are my two go-tos. If you were going to do something every day, that's what I would do, because it works so many parts of your body. So those would be my go-to ones. And then, now, I don't know that this, I want to show you guys, I don't know that this will be feasible for everyone's setup right now, but if you have a step or a step stool, I'm going to show you this exercise so that you can do it at a later date. So I have my dog here too wanting to play now. So I have a little like kitchen stool because I'm 5 feet tall. So this I will show you just on the ground like so. I'm going to move it out now so you guys can see what I'm going to do. But these are just what we call step ups. And so with this, excuse me, you literally step up with one of your feet. So if I start with my left, I'm stepping up, driving my other leg up. Then I go back down and I can switch. Go to my right, drive my other foot up. I would do 5 per side with that. And that's kind of, again, like almost a variation on a lunge type of exercise. So that's something you can do with any sort of kind of like platform you have in your house. You don't have to have this, kitchen step stool that I have. But anything like that, you can give that a try. Even if you don't have a step though, you can by all means just work on that driving motion with your feet. And it works on quad strength, knee strength, and it's just pretty good for you. Okay. Okay, so the next one I'm going to show you is what we call a good morning. And for this, you don't need to use anything, but so you have a visual, and you certainly can do this. I'm going to use a Swiffer brush handle so that you get what I'm trying to accomplish. You can do this with either dumbbells, barbells, anything if you want to, but you do not have to add weight. So I'm going to take my Swiffer here, and I'm going to move back so you can kind of see the whole picture of what I'm doing. So I'm going to put this behind my shoulders and wrap my hands around it. I have my feet shoulder width apart again. And I'm going to turn this way so you can see what I'm doing. I'm going to bend my knees slightly so that I'm almost sitting backwards, but not quite. A slight bend. And then I'm going to lean forward. Just slightly. You'll feel this in your hamstrings. And again, you don't need anything to do this. You can have your imaginary item. And it just adds tension to your quads and your hamstrings. And it will work glutes as well. So like 10 of those is more than enough. Anyone who, has workout equipment or finds that they like it, there are these things that I like to use at my gym, which I haven't been to in a while considering, but they're called body bars, and they might weigh maybe 10 pounds, but they're, basically a stick. And that's what I would use to do those, because I don't want to add a ton of weight, but I'm like, okay, I get it. I want to build on what I have here. That would be a good example. But again, you don't need anything. But if you want that sense of balance or something in place, you can do that same thing. Some of you have weights, that's perfect. Yep, you can use the individual dumbbells, a bar, anything you have. So those are what we call good mornings. I think that is a cute name for them. And so again, these are all universal movements, okay? And the next one I'm going to show you, and I'm going to have to, I think, angle myself way down, but is the glute bridge. So I'm going to lay out my towel here. And so what I'm going to do with my dog Zeus is I'm going to lay with my knees bent back flat on the ground. And then I am going to raise my hips as high as I can and squeeze my glutes and hamstrings together. And hold for about 30 seconds. If you have tight hamstrings like myself, you may get a bit of a Charlie horse, but you can just kind of move your leg, bring it back. You should be okay. If you have a dog like myself, he will lick your face while you do this. Okay, so there's plenty of variation on the glute bridge. Okay, so let's say you start doing this exercise, you really like it. You can do what we call hip thrusters with it as well. So start in this position and you just go down and up and squeeze when you come up, and you're really gonna feel that in the hamstring. You can also, if you find that you have established your base here and you're feeling good, you can do single leg and switch. And again, you know, I'm giving you these variations so you have kind of different tools to work with, but you can choose what will work for you. So that is our bridge, and that's called your glute bridge. That's something you can easily do every day, assuming if it's comfortable for you to lay down in that position. Otherwise, I've got two other ones I want to show you for leg base, and then we'll move on to our arms. These next two exercises are walking exercises as well, but they utilize a kind of quad positioning. So this is what we call, and you can do these with, if you have like exercise bands, they're called TheraBands. You can put them around your calves to create more tension if you want a variation, but I'm gonna go without for this. So 2 walks. So the first one, I'm gonna it's called a side shuffle. Okay, and so I'm in a slightly bent position. My legs are shoulder width apart, and I'm gonna take small steps to my right, maybe an inch or 2, just tiny steps. Keeping my positioning. And you can see where if you had a TheraBand, you would start to feel the burn. I mean, you'll feel the burn just doing this, but it adds a little more tension. And then you come back the same way. Typically, if you do 2 sets of that, you're gonna feel some burn. So I'll give you guys a minute to do that. And then our second one are called monster walks, because you look kind of like a monster. So I'm going to start further back by my couch here so you can kind of see it. You're starting in that same position where you're like slightly bent at the knee, almost like you're sitting back to do a squat. And then I will show you. Okay, so I'm in that position, and you can do this with a band as well, but you're taking your leg, whichever one you start with, and swinging it slightly out like a zombie or a monster would, in theory, right? Like just a little bit of a step outside that's a little bigger than normal. And I'll do that again so you guys can see. Steps don't need to be too big, just a little bit wider than you normally would, but in your crouched position. And that is another one that will have you most certainly feeling the burn after a couple of sets. And it's just kind of a funny one to do. I always feel kind of ridiculous when I do them at the gym, but That's okay. All right, so those are my leg exercises. So now I'm going to show you guys some arm-based universal exercises. So for the first one, what we're going to do is arm raises. Okay, I call these front and side raises. You can do these with hand weights. You don't have to. And literally, let me angle this here now. So hands in fists or holding dumbbells, lift up to shoulders, go back down, side to shoulders. Try not to go past the shoulder. And you go up. That's one set. Then you move on to two. Yeah. This is one of those ones that's deceiving in that you can either have no weight or what you would perceive as a small amount of weight, and after about 8 of them, you're like, wow, that really hurts. That's all I can do, and your arms are starting to shake and get stuck there. But that's a really good one to build all along the muscle in the kind of back and traps, and then up in the pectoral area as well. And then next, we would have the traditional push-up. But what I will say about that, I'm not a big fan of the push-up. I'm not great at it, but like I said earlier, I have like my wrist does not feel good in that position. And so what I would encourage anyone to do with this is, if you're good at regular push-ups, great, do it. But all we're trying to do is create tension. So as long as you are doing it in the correct positioning, you can do it standing upright, slightly leaning into a wall. You don't need to be on the ground. You can do an incline off of a bench. But if you use a wall, you can just put palms up, shoulder length apart, and all you're doing is moving inward. So for this example, I will show you on the ground, but just keep that in mind. Not everybody is great with a successful push-up on the ground, but you can do other things. One thing I would also say is, if you get down into push-up position, so your palms are going to be about shoulder width apart and legs out back behind you, but if you aren't comfortable with your legs up, it is okay to leave them down to start. Again, we're just trying to get the form and the resistance. So down and up. And then if you want to have your legs up, you certainly can. Have your toes resting on the ground. And that's something you can do building sets of 10, sets of 5. You know, some people, once you get into a rhythm of it, you're really good at it. It's easy to do tons of them. That is not the case for me, but I like to do it because it's good for you to do. So that's another universal one that you can do. Also, if you want to switch it up just because you're tired of it, you can also certainly do it off the wall or on an incline, on a bench, any number of things. Tons of variations on a regular push-up. Okay, another one we want to do is curls. So like we were talking about earlier, a single arm curl is a localized movement. But when you make it double, it's more universal. So for this, if I'm using my Swiffer dumbbell or barbell, if you will, hands at your sides, curled over. If you don't have anything, that's fine. And just curling up, slight hold, back down. And again, there is certainly nothing wrong with a localized movement. So since this is fit from home, I also grabbed a can of these garbanzo beans to demo, you know, anything you want to use at home, you certainly can. Don't have to get I was looking to get myself some dumbbells, and it had been so long since I'd done that I couldn't believe how expensive they were. So instead of paying $50, you can just get yourself some garbanzo beans. But they will only weigh so much. All right, so another one that you can do is a dip. So dips are working your tricep. And so I want to show you this. So I'm going to move my camera quickly so you can see how I do this. So if I'm going to use this table here, and I'm going to angle my camera so you can see that I'm using this as a support. You can use a chair, you can use your couch, something, anything as long as it's stable. The closer you are to the back, your back touching whatever this is, the harder it's going to be. And you go and dip down as low as you can. If you can get down to a 90-degree angle at the elbow, fantastic. But if you can't, you just go as far as you can and come back up. Even if it's just an inch to start, you will build up progress. Right, Zeus? Right. So that is a traditional dip, okay? So if you have a weight bench, a chair, any number of things, you can make it work for you at home. And then I'm gonna move us on to our core section, which again is universal, okay? So core is very important. Again, if I were to go back to college Meredith and tell her that, she would be like, no, we don't need it, but we do need it. So I will show you guys some variations here. Okay, so I'm gonna bring you guys down to ground level, sort of, so that, not quite, so my dog doesn't get you, but the most important core exercise, in my personal opinion, is the plank. Doesn't mean everybody loves it, but it is essential. So I'm going to show you some variations. Okay, if you get down, make sure you can see me. This is Zeus's favorite. So if you get down into this position, I have my elbows planted on the floor, and you want to keep your back as straight as possible and just hold and focus on your core. 30 seconds to a minute. Zeus. That is your standard front plank. I do that every day. It works your core, but also your legs and your arms. And the variations you can do then are side. So then I have my legs stacked on top of each other. And obviously you can do this on both sides. You want to try to keep your body as straight as possible. You can put your arm in the air. You can leave it at your side. Other variations, you can do dips in this position. So if you want to take your hip down, then up. You can do what I like to call hugs. So I start with my arm up in the air, and then I come under and through. Give yourself a hug, like so. And then I switch sides and I do my other side. So typically I do about at least 3 minutes of the plank. There's also a back plank, which you can do either like this with your arms totally outstretched behind you, like so. Or if you feel good and your triceps are feeling good, you can pop up onto your forearms and do it like this. And you will feel that burn in your hamstrings and your arms. But right there, if you do a minute of each of those, you have 4 minutes of core exercise, which I enjoy as they don't seem too difficult. Then from the plank position, I like to go into what I call tabletop position, which is just as it sounds. So now I have, again, my hands, my palms are on the ground here, and I'm just up in kind of a table. I've got my legs back like I would in a normal plank. So you can see that angle. Okay. And then once you can do this for about a minute and you'll feel it, but variations on this are what we would call shoulder touches. So I'm going to touch this to my opposite shoulder. And you want to try, as you develop core, to stay as straight as possible without turning your body, touching your other shoulder. Or you can do what we call front flag, which is bringing your arms up one at a time. Then I'll kind of crawl forward for you guys to see. You can do similar things with your legs. So leg raises one at a time. They're going straight up and back, but you can also do to the side. And this is also a hip exercise. So long as you have enough space. Zeus. And then another favorite in tabletop is mountain climbers. So, well, actually, let's do knee to shoulder. So you take your right knee to your opposite elbow. And this is core and strengthening. Okay. Those are some good tabletop exercises. And then I will show you some fun ones laying on your back. These are the best ones because you get to lay down. Okay, so that's enough. So you can do, so if you're laying flat on your back, engage your core and do leg raises. You bring them up about 6 inches, hold for a second, bring them back down. 30 seconds to a minute. Then you can do a 6-inch hold. So laying on the ground, bring up your feet 6 inches and hold it there for 30 seconds, engaging your core. And then, oh yes, flutter kicks. So you can do movements in the air like so, while engaging your core. And those would be my suggestions for your top core exercises. And once you guys finish up with those, I will show you a couple of cool down exercises, and then we'll see if you guys have any questions, and we'll go from there. So, all right, so once you're done with the workout, okay, so these are all universal, so you can do them all in one day if you want to, or you can focus on, you know, arms, legs, whatever you so choose. You'll want to stretch as you cool down. This would be the appropriate time to use a static stretch. You can do a dynamic stretch, but static stretching is really good for when you are finished with exercise. So I will show you a few. So what I do with this one, which is called pigeon, I believe, technically. So I cross over, excuse me, Zeus, a leg in front of me, like so. So there's bent, and you can stay upright, and this does one stretch, staying completely upright with that foot bent. Or you can lean forward and come all the way to the ground. And that is also another way to do the stretch, or you can do both. I typically hold this for a minute, and then I switch and do my other leg. And you should feel this in a few different places, but you're gonna feel it a lot in your glutes and in your like quad, hamstring area. Then, another one I like to do, I have my knees bent. I take one leg, put my foot up on the knee, and lean back. You can push this knee forward if you feel so inclined. I don't like to, it does not feel good for me, but you can. And you will feel that in your hip, groin area as well. I do this one for a minute, and then I switch to the other side. Zeus. I typically find that one side is a lot more flexible than another for me. It's always been the case. So just remember, you know, in the same respect that you would do more exercises on a weaker side, you might want to stretch that side longer as well. And then what I do is kind of roll right onto my back and pull one leg in. You pull it close to your chest. And this is gonna obviously work these muscles, but also your lower back. With this, I usually hold for either 30 seconds or a minute, and I switch. And then I pull both knees in, and I do another 30 seconds to a minute. And then one of my favorite ones that really works, hip flexors. I get into a kind of kneeling lunge position. So my knee is bent, and you push forward. Kind of lean your whole body forward. You don't have to put, you know, pressure on the knee, but just kind of rest there and allow that back leg to really kind of sprawl all the way out. My dog discovered a bag of croutons. She's currently enjoying some Panera tomato basil soup croutons. And then I do that for a minute, and then I switch. Same thing. And that full stretch that these stretches I usually get about 5 minutes in total out of, which for me is pretty good. As I'm sure with many of you, like the biggest obstacle a lot of times with exercise and with doing the things that are really required to make it successful is time. So sometimes I'm like, yeah, 5 minutes of stretch. I'm like, of course I have time. But then, you know, it's easy to run out of time. So it's better to do some over none. But the last piece I want to show you guys is something I do twice a week that is a strength builder and kind of a stretch action. And it's called the Myrtle hip routine. And I will show you those because I think this is really important for anybody who has really any pain. So if you have hip pain, knee pain, foot pain, this could really help. So the first set, I'm going to angle my legs so they're stacked on top of one another. And I'm just doing leg raises, just normal, keep them as straight as possible. As a guide on this, when you're doing leg raises, once you start to really feel a burn in your hip up here, do 2 more, then stop. You don't need to overdo it and make it so you can't walk, but that should be good. So you'll want to do that on both sides. Then, if anybody here has ever had an issue with piriformis or IT band, you'll want to do the next one, which is, so these ones are stacked right on top of each other. The next variation, you move the top leg back behind just slightly so that your toes are basically touching your heel, and you do the same thing. And for some reason, this seems to magically work, and it helps. Okay. Then I move into clamshells. So moving your legs into a clamshell position. You can do this with the band as well if you want a variation. And just opening up your hips. Do like 10 of those. Again, that feeling that burn. And then I switch sides. That's enough. Then you can move it back into this kind of tabletop position, and we do what are called fire hydrants, which is when you lift your leg up and out like a dog. Zeus is looking at me like I'm crazy. It's okay. And you do that on both sides. And the last one I do is called the donkey kick, which is where you just go straight back and up. Kind of make a hook. You'll feel that in your glute, your hamstring, and your back. Yes, yes, I know. I'd recommend that twice a week. You can do it every day. But it's all good for you. So, I know with some of these exercises, you know, we're going through this kind of quickly, so you probably didn't get to do all of them. But like I said, I will follow up and make sure that I send out kind of my full, what's the word, like a glossary of things that I use, so that way you're not always doing the same thing, because it can get boring and you're like, okay, I'm doing the same thing every day. That's why variation is good, obviously. These are exercises you can do every day. So if you are someone that has another sort of workout routine you do, if you're a runner or cyclist or anything you do every day, it won't hurt you to add these things in. You certainly don't have to do them every day, but you can. You know, once you start adding weights and doing complicated kind of weight things, that's when you have to watch, okay, I don't want to do this all the time, but these ones are all pretty safe. But I wanted to leave time in case there were any questions. If there's not, I won't be offended, but feel free to ask any.
Can I ask?
Yeah.
So for some reason, planks drive me crazy. I just get so bored after 20 seconds, not only bored, but my whole body starts shaking and I just hate them.
Yes.
I don't know why. I don't know if I should just keep working at them, say, well, I got to get better and better, or is there any other like kind of abs or core exercises I could substitute?
Definitely. Yeah, with planks, I mean, a lot of people certainly feel that way. I would say if you want to incorporate it, I would do shorter segments, like 10 to 15 seconds of a forward plank, 15 seconds to the side, switch, and then that's it. Or you can repeat that cycle if you're like, okay, shorter segments are fine. If not, I would move towards, and again, I'll send this kind of list of exercises. But all of those ones we did where you're laying on your back too, you can kind of replace those plank ones with, if you do like have both your legs in the air and throw them kind of from side to side, it works that same muscle group. So I would say you can definitely do that. Planks for me are just so easy to remember. So I do them, but I absolutely get it. And I will send some other ones that you can do to kind of replace that same thing.
Okay, sounds good. I have another question about curls.
Yeah.
Is it best, I don't know if it makes a difference, to alternate arms or do them both at once?
So that's actually a really good question. So I don't think you're doing any sort of like damage or harm by doing it one way or the other, but I would say the one kind of principle that I go on is that one I was saying. It's like, if you feel that, like, I'm right hand dominant, so I always start and focus on my left first. So that way, if I'm like, okay, I got to 8 on this side and that's it, then I don't have to worry about, you know, starting with my right and doing like 20 and then being like, ooh, now I'm really imbalanced. But if you know that you're pretty well even and you want to do them at the same time, that's totally fine. There's nothing wrong with it by any means.
Meredith, could you repeat what you said about, you made reference to an IT band exercise. I think you were doing side leg raises. Could you show us that one more time? And
Yeah,
was that strength from the IT band, or can you do it after an IT band injury, or is that too much?
No. You can do it all the time. I would say if you are coming back from an injury and it's irritating it, I would wait. But if you do any of those hip exercises, that really helps. I had some pretty serious IT band stuff going on for a while, and this really solved it. So if you do the kind of original legs stacked and do these, however many you can do until you start to feel that burn, add a couple more, and then stop, switch sides, and then move this top leg right behind and do them again. It's something about like the movement works that IT band and that pure form is back here, and it helps. But all of those hip exercises, the clams, these ones, these are all really, really good for IT band. So I would encourage all of those, but definitely the side raises are a big one that should be really helpful.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I have another question.
Yeah.
Every once in a while, every couple months or so, I feel like I get into a back thing where, my muscles feel tight and painful for about a week or two, and then it just, it goes away. But I think, and I don't know if it's true, but maybe with good stretching of hips or thighs, it would not happen as much. I'm just wondering about stretches or exercises to help keep the lower back from going into spasm problems.
Yeah, that's a good question. A lot of people struggle with lower back. One thing I would say that I do, like if I get lower back pain, so a lot of times, even if it's lower back, if you have like even a towel you can roll up, or like a ball. I mean, I've got like, my dog has these, like a tennis ball here, a tiny one, and then I've got this foam ball. If you can lay on that or massage that along your belt line, for some reason there's like these trigger points there that can really help. I would try that. And it feels kind of painful when you hit the trigger points, so don't do it for too long, but it is helpful. And then another stretch I would recommend, and this takes some kind of like practice, it's not like the prettiest thing, but if you're laying on your back and you kind of put your arms out at your sides, you want to reach your opposite leg to your opposite arm the best you can. So, you know, if you have great flexibility and it's going to go way up your hand, great. I am not, but this really works your lower back. So doing that, and again, like to both sides. So as far as you can to do that. And that one that we did at the end, the stretch coming in like this, holding that for longer should help. And when you're doing that, if you roll up a towel and put it underneath lower back belt line, that should help as well. Those are some I would definitely try. And then they say like sitting on an exercise ball can really help. I have not tried that, but that's what I've heard.
Okay, thank you.
Meredith, I don't know, it might be myself, but I know that I'm sitting in front of a computer screen a lot more and I'm doing a lot more of the hunching over the computer screen. Is there any good exercises or stretches to kind of help? I can feel at the end of the day, my shoulders are definitely not in the place they should be.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yes, would you mind sharing anything, words of wisdom about that?
Yeah, no, well, it's funny you say that because I had like a pain in my back and my shoulder blade. And I was like, what is that? And I go to my doctor. They're like, yeah, you've been sitting at a desk. I'm like, oh, okay. So basically, any of these ones, like your basic, like standing and leaning is good. You want to do kind of like the hugging motion as well. This is really good. And you can kind of feel that right away. If you are sitting, and they gave me some stretches. So now I feel like freshly versed on this. These ones, you know, these are all Zeus. These are all good. And then like reaching and rotation of any type is good as well. That I would definitely recommend. Yeah. And honestly, just like moving at the end of the day, they were like, just try not to like then, because I would like work all day and then go read a book and be like, you know, so they're like, try not to do that. I'm like, and especially working from home too, it's like, a lot of times will be like, well, I'll be comfortable on the couch, but it's not great for your back. So if you can sit at a desk sometimes, sit at a desk, I guess.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Hi, this is Vicki. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Oh, okay. I have a problem with balance when I'm doing these lunges, especially in the warm-up exercises. Is it okay to hang on to a table or something? Or you?
Yes, 100%. I would encourage it. Yeah, like anything that is at your kind of from your shoulder down to your hip level is going to be really good. Another thing I would recommend, because for whatever reason, I actually was recently working with an athlete that had really poor ankle stability for whatever reason. And if you can hold on to something and do this, but if you can hold on and literally just a few times a day, balance on one foot, it will help so much. Always hold on to something, because I do this as well. And if you do it first with your eyes open and then close your eyes, it's like 10 times harder. I would never have believed it until I did it. But that can really help with balance. But for any exercise like lunges and squats even, it will not take away from the activity to hold on to something.
Oh, good. Thank you.
Well, we probably have time for just maybe one or two more questions. If anyone has anything else they'd like to ask, give you another minute here.
Zeus is open to any questions as well.
What kind of dog is Zeus?
He's a mini Jack Russell.
Oh, he's so
That's
cute.
Yes, he's
Very
darling.
tiny and energetic. He's a good runner.
Wow.
Good. Well, thank you so much, Meredith. I think we all learned a lot, so informative. And an important thing to keep in mind is, you know, folks are still stuck at home to find some ways to keep moving. So thank you so much for joining us, and all the alumni on the call. Thanks so much for joining in. I hope that you learned some new things and some ways that you can keep active at home. It's really great to be able to learn from fellow alumni, It's been really exciting throughout the Alumni College we've been doing. So hope you all have a wonderful night. Stay warm wherever you are, or maybe you're in a warm place. If not, we hope you have a nice night. And we hope you'll join us for some of our other upcoming events. Just keep an eye on our website, our newsletter, and information coming out that way.